last week on the Appalachian Liturgy podcast. Okay, welcome to the Appalachian Liturgy podcast. I am Justin Stacy.
I'm Reverend Brooke Ashley.
And I'm Justin Bowling.
And today we are honored to have our guest, Christian Taylor.
Well, so the reason that you guys know me, like you said, is because you've heard me on the Holy Post podcast. And the Holy Post podcast is a podcast that I've been on for about 9 years with Phil Vischer, who's the creator of VeggieTales and What's in the Bible, and most recently some pretty controversial videos on race in America and abortion and the history of evangelicalism in America. And so my grandmother would end up playing in the kitchen with the cook's daughter. The cook was Marguerite Chandler. And so my grandmother and Marguerite Chandler, who was Black, grew up in this little logging camp together. And as my grandmother got older and once she got married and had a child, she had Marguerite come and work with her in her home as the help. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Help.
Yes.
But that really was my life to a T, honestly. And my husband made a point of being like, you're going to vote for him, aren't you? Just because he's a Republican, you're not able to. And I never voted for a Democrat until 2016.
Do life's greatest questions seem like a mystery? Well, we're probably going to talk about it here at Appalachian Liturgy. Important questions like, are you a Jedi or an Imperial? Is oatmeal actually a breakfast cereal? Is a Catholic weekday really called a ferial? Did you know that Mr. Rogers was Presbyterial? So join us as we have a little fun talking about Thy kingdom come.
Well, I hope, I feel like the pandemic has been so wonderful for shaking up the Christian church in so many different ways. The pandemic in connection with our political cultural divide at the moment is really forcing us in a lot of ways. It's revealing the fissures that were already there. I talk to people a lot about what's happening politically and culturally is no surprise to me, because even though in my hometown we have moved beyond those initial days in the 70s of desegregation, the attitudes remained, and everything was spoken in whispers. And I said this on another podcast I was on the other day. We used to have, I didn't actually, but my mother and my sisters, they had Niglet dolls, little black dolls that they played with and that's what the little children were, affectionately called. And I think back now, and that's just horrific. Can you imagine little black girls having little white babies as collectibles? I mean, I don't know, it's just terrible. But my point is, I just think I've forgotten my point. What
we were
was
talking
I
about COVID increasing the fissures. I call it a catalyst. I think COVID was a catalyst to what was already happening. It just made everything happen faster in a more condensed time.
Well, and I would say the reason I say it was exposing fissures is that all of those attitudes that they had in my hometown or in my own family, like, they have just come out now. Now everyone's free to speak those out. And, there's just no repercussions. I mean, even when I was growing up, it wasn't overtly, it was all said in whispers, and everything was fine as long as everybody stayed in their place. Right. If you stayed on your side of the tracks and I stayed on my side of the tracks, and you did your job as, a maid or a butler or a garage man, and I did mine as running the bank, and we're all happy-go-lucky, then everything's good. But people still had the same attitudes then that they do now. And I just hear all of my friends, family, and relatives just say them out loud, like it's okay.
So the hometown that I'm from, I went through the same type of thing, and I didn't see the overt racism when I was growing up. I didn't think I was racist at all. I was somewhat exposed in high school to other types of people, so I felt like I'm good. I'm good on that. But my class ring, my senior class ring, I put the Confederate flag on it. and my
Probably clarify that's your school's.
that's my
mascot.
school
You just didn't do it out
mascot.
of
It is.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, it is.
You have to walk through 2 doors with them right there.
Yeah, we have the General Lee as the like the actual mascot, but then the Confederate flag is the flag of the school.
That's like
and it's-
Ole Miss. That was the same with Ole Miss.
Yes, and it's still that way. And the thing is the demographics it was 99.999% white in my hometown. Like, I don't remember a single black kid growing up. I just don't. Now, after I graduated, there was a black student there, and people would actually make a big deal that this kid supports it and he's black, so what's there's obviously nothing wrong with it. But in my mind, he's just doing that because he's wanting to fit in, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing. I mean, it was the same Confederate flag issue in my home state. Finally, this year we got a new flag. But I remember growing up myself being like, why do they want us to change our flag? That's just our flag. It doesn't mean anything. Well, no, of course it doesn't mean anything to me, but it certainly means something to those people that were dominated by it. I mean, we just only see things through our own perspective. And it's so difficult to step out. If you've never met somebody from a different culture or a different race or any sort of different persuasion, once you meet them, it's one thing. But once you actually extend friendship and you become friends and you get to know their culture, only then do you begin to question the attitudes and beliefs that you've held.
It breaks down the tribalism that you have, that's ingrained in you. And I love Sky's series right now. He's going through tribalism.
Oh yeah.
And he talked about the most.
This is on his devotional.
With God Daily. He talked about the most dangerous type of atheism, and basically it's Christians who are pretending, going through the motions. But not really Christians. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
Well,
and that was came from Martin Luther King. And what's so fascinating is we've been reading, his sermons from a Birmingham jail and some different things from like 1950, mid 1950s, and it's so prescient. Like, what he get this under control and live what we say we will believe. This is what we're going to become, and this is what we have become. It's just it's heart-wrenching to me to see that. And I'll tell you, I was talking to Sky yesterday in this Christian Ass thing about how do we, now I think that there is a swing to the other side of, we can look at other people who have these divergent, political views or cultural views or Christian views. And let's take the Capitol insurrection as one example. We can look at them and talk about how wrong they are, or how bad they were, or how they've perverted the gospel, or so many different things. But we have to be super careful not to other them, right? And sit in judgment on these people without knowing them individually. And I just think that we don't want to swing over that way, and we have to go the extra mile to be loving and understanding and inquisitive about why they are where they are, and truly praying for them to have some sort of spiritual revelation.
I was talking to a friend. I was talking to a friend recently, and she was a Trump supporter on the complete opposite end of where I am politically, but luckily we've stayed friends. And she was talking about,
that's a miracle, by the way.
It is right. So she was talking sort of the dynamic of us versus them, and her side versus my side, and all of that. And I think I forgot my point now. I just pulled a Christian.
Welcome to my world.
I'll remember it in a second.
Okay, you were a Trump supporter. You were not a Trump supporter. She was a Trump supporter, and you were supporting someone else, and you were able to maintain your friendship.
Yes, and that's as far as my thought process got. And I got a good point too. It was a great story.
See,
and we have kind of mentioned. Oh, go ahead, Berg.
No, go ahead. You got it.
I was just going to say, we've kind of talked a little bit about that before, and that like when people talk about, you should love your enemies, lots of times people use that as like for people who aren't actually enemies, like saying like, oh, you should love your enemies and love, immigrants or something like that. But we really don't think they're enemies. We really have a hard time truly loving people that we think did something wrong. And so like, I think we have to, like Christian was saying, we have to keep that in mind and make sure we don't, like, even though people may have some deplorable views sometimes, we still have to love them. That's what Christ calls us to do.
Yeah.
I remember my
Did
point.
you remember? Yeah.
I did.
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically she was saying, she said, I know your side don't really care because in the past 4 years, my side didn't care. And I brought up the point, there's a bumper sticker and I hated it. I hated seeing anyone that had it. And it was F your feelings. And that was a Trump supporting sticker in our area, at least. And I told her, I was like, that bumper sticker offended me so much that I want to make sure you know that I actually care about your feelings. And I feel like that's just an easy way to reach out to, a brother or sister in Christ that you disagree on everything, really, when it comes to politics, just to show that, I do care about your feelings. I do care about, if you think that there's issues with their electoral system, I care about that. I'm going to listen to you at least.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's been so fascinating, being with Sky and Phil and working through these issues each week, is that truthfully, the only way to bridge this divide is to sit down and try to listen to each other and care more about the relationship and the other person than we care about our own political persuasion.
Yeah,
And that's true in a Christian faith and a political, situation, or even a cultural situation. And, I just cannot stress that enough. Like, we have to care about the relationship more than we care about the thing. And that does mean listening to people, loving people. I talked to someone the other day who she just rails on Donald Trump all the time and just so angry and in a knot about him and stuff. And I told her that I prayed for him. And she was like, what? And like, you pray for him to be, dead? I'm like, no. Can you imagine? I'm like, can you imagine what would happen if Donald Trump had a real, genuine spiritual conversion?
Yeah.
What would that be like? What would our world be like if he truly had a complete divine revelation and transformed his entire life?
Yeah, it would change a lot for a lot
It
of
would change a lot.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have to genuinely pray for those that we disagree with and don't like, befriend them, be kind to them. And it's hard a lot of times, for sure.
Yeah. And I think we've forgotten how to really listen. So like, instead of just listening, we're already formulating our response to what we think somebody is going to say. So when my kids were little, and that was a long time ago, one of their core values of their elementary school was active listening. And they tried to teach the kids to actively listen. Listening wasn't passive, but it was an active thing that they had to do. And I don't know that we do that well, or even know how. Sorry, the dog is obviously wanting to be in the podcast today.
Special guest.
It's live.
Yes.
Yeah, right. It is. But I don't think that we know how to actively listen anymore.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. It reminds me, and you'll have to forgive me for plugging my own current work, but it reminds me about what I learned in France. And, as you talked about before, I'm the director of a movie called The Girl Who Wore Freedom. I don't know if you can see this, but yes, it is. It's a 90-minute feature-length documentary on the D-Day and the beginning of the end of World War II, but from the perspective of the French. And I went over there in 2015 because my son Hunter was sent there by the Army to represent the 101st Airborne Division in the D-Day ceremonies. And when he called me and said, Mom, the Army's sending me to France, I said, we're going to France? And he said, no, I'm going to France. I go, oh, you just watch me. And I went, and in the first 15 minutes, this beautiful French woman came up to him and asked to take a picture. And I said, well, I'll take the picture. And we started talking, and she said that her mother was given a jacket by an American GI in 1944. And I was like, is your mother still alive? She's like, well, yes, she's right here. And here's my father. And her mother was Danny Patrice Boucherie, who was 5 on D-Day. And her father was Jean-Marie, who was 7. And so I began, that introduction. And the moment that we met is on our website, thegirlwhoworefreedom.com, in the video section. I happened to be filming, and, it ends with my first question, which was, what do you remember about D-Day? That moment changed my life forever. And I spent the next 4 days as their guests of Normandy while they took me around everywhere. And I saw a whole new way of doing life that I had never imagined. Here are these people, a godless bunch of people. There's these big, beautiful 1,100-year-old churches that are empty all the time. And I was so confused because this was an incredibly loving group of people. And I saw, if we truly believe that God is love, what I saw there was evidence that God was present. And yet the French people never talk about religion. Like, you do not talk about religion, and you do not talk about politics with anybody in France. They just don't do it. It's considered impolite. So here I was watching these people not talk about the core things that we talk about in America, but I watched them just lavish love on one another. They have these big family meals, typically, where they sit and talk and spend time together, where they help each other out. And then they shed that love all over the veterans and the American. I mean, they treated me like I liberated Normandy. You would think that I did it. That's just how grateful they were. And I thought back a lot about that, because what they do is they're looking at the relationships. And those are so much more important than bringing in anything that would divide them. And so they then are friends with all types of people that don't look like them, that don't necessarily have the money that they have, but they're all friends together. It's a wonderful example. So I made a movie about all of that. You can.
I'm so sad. That was supposed to be our date night movie last night, and we couldn't get the link to work. I was so sad.
It expired. So I did get to watch it. I watched it last weekend before it expired. And I will say it made me cry. So thank you, Christian, for making me cry.
Oh, you liked it? Oh, good.
Yeah. So the part that really got to me is when one of the veterans was talking about wanting to be buried in Normandy. And the reasonings he gave of them taking care of the graves, and then also it being visited, and just the honor that he would get.
That was C.O. Bauer. C.O. Bauer. Yeah. That
hit me hard. Also, one of your interviews, they said that they like to go to Normandy to meet the people there because those people would listen and Americans won't. And
right. So
that hit me hard too, because I know that's true. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. Well, all of those things that you're mentioning came from C.O. Bauer, who was the 95th Infantry veteran who landed there. And he says he got his $1 million wound. I think it's on November 8th, 1944, where he was injured so badly he was sent home. And he's an incredible man. And he just talked about the lack of respect he experiences here in America. So for clarity's sake, not to give you any spoilers, but the first half of the film, we talk about the French people and what their experience was like living through living through 4 years of occupation and then D-Day. And 20,000 lives were lost in the Battle of D-Day, and most of those were at the hands of the American bombers. And so they experienced incredible grief in Normandy. This is on top of basically being pillaged for all of their things and having nothing for such a long time. And so, but over time, and this is what I was so fascinated about, they had all of that grief and trauma, but somehow by the time I ended up in 2015, there was just this incredible joy and laughter and happiness and gratitude. And I was like, how did you get from that grief to that gratitude, and how has it lasted so long? And that was what I began investigating. And so the film is sort of my journey of discovery through that. And so the second half, we then talked to the veterans, and one French person told me this, who is responsible. She runs Veterans Back to Normandy. Her name is Valerie Cardin. And she said her experience with bringing the veterans back is that when they meet French people, that love and gratitude then liberates the veterans from their oppressive memories of war. And I was like, oh, that is just so poetic, that these veterans came there to liberate them from this physical awfulness. And then now, 75 years later, these French people are liberating these veterans. I mean, how precious is it? And I saw the salvation story. I was playing with the idea of like, rescue and reparation and restoration and, reconciliation, because they now bring German veterans there, and you have German and American veterans who meet together. I couldn't get it all worked out that way, but all of those elements are there because it reminded me so much of the Christian journey. Danny has this dress made out of parachutes that were, used to deliver her and give her salvation. Right. And so they wear those American flag dresses like we wear crosses for Christ who delivered us.
That's awesome.
So I just saw this incredible story there and felt like Americans needed to hear it. And so the last, 4 years of my life have been all about making this movie and getting it, out to the world.
Well, it's amazing. It touched me for sure, and I hope everyone
I'm
else
glad.
can see it. How many awards have you won thus far?
I started to count those the other day. I'm not quite sure. I think we're up to we've been accepted into 15 or 16 film festivals at the least, and we've won awards at every film festival but 2.
Oh,
so,
wow.
and I don't know what was wrong with those people, but we've won awards for, our original score, for emerging filmmaker, best woman filmmaker, and for, best editing, and all the rest of them are best documentary feature. And we've won 2 audience awards. So I am a first-time filmmaker. I've never done this before. It was the same thing I did with the Phil Vischer podcast, where I was like, I have no idea how to do a documentary, but somebody's got to tell this story. So it might as well be me. How hard can it be?
Right.
Well,
It's very hard.
congratulations. I'm
And
glad it's
congrats.
worked
Thank
out.
you
Yeah.
very much. I will make sure that you
Can't
guys have the
wait
link.
to-
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
People
I'm
can,
excited.
right now, and hopefully you'll put these in the show notes, but right now, you can watch it for 4 weeks for $5. I don't get that money, sadly, but the Flathead Lake International Cinema Fest will benefit. They're a nonprofit organization doing great work. And so the link for that is on thegirlwhoworefreedom.com/festivals. And you go to that link and you'll see the Flathead Lake International Cinema Fest. And there's links there for you to watch the film through March 4th. And then we will be in festivals after that. This weekend coming up, we're recording on Saturday. So a week from today, I'm heading to Beaufort, South Carolina, which is in the Sea Islands of South Carolina. And we're going to show the film there. And then after that, we're supposed to be in the Omaha Film Fest, the Thin Line Film Fest, and there's one other one that's escaping me at the moment. I can't remember. Anyway, it's all on our website. You'll have to go there and see. But also, I will tell you this. I'll give you a special deal. If people want to watch it outside of those times, if they want to email me directly at christian@normandystories.com, I will actually, give them a link to watch if they would make a donation to our page, which is thegirlwhoworefreedom.com/donate. We are really in a tight bind because of the pandemic. The only way that we can function is through donations, and those have died. So I would be willing to let people watch for a fee. I don't know what I would do that for.
See, I would love to do that because we're starting to open up back a little bit, and the church put in brand new all this technology. It'd be awesome to open that up and show it and raise some money. So
I
we'll
would
see if we
love
can't
that.
do some of
We can talk about that offline. I'll make that happen for you.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'll put all the information in the show notes, and I'll
Okay.
put your email on the screen as well. So
Super.
we'll be good
Thank
there.
you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been great getting to know you guys.
Yeah, this is fun.
it's been a lot
I
of
feel
fun.
like we probably need another show just to talk more.
Well, I'm welcome to come back anytime for sure.
You have an open invitation, and I hope we can stay in contact because Christian, you're great. So segue.
Appalachian Liturgy Top 5 Debate.
To our top 5. So Christian, thank you for coming up with our topic for the top 5. We are doing top 5 World War II movies. And
Yes, all because of The Girl Who Wore Freedom got me into all of these
Yes.
World War II movies.
Yes, ma'am. So you get to go first and start with your number 5 going down.
Oh, that now you're really messing with me.
Mhm.
My number 5. Okay. So I'm going to have to say my number 5 would be The Bridge on the River Kwai.
It's a good one.
It is a good one. What about you? Is that on anybody's list? Do I need to keep going with all of them?
You will do all of them, and we may or may not comment if we agree or disagree.
Okay,
I'll do all of
hold
them.
on. I want to write them in the backwards order, so give me a second. We'll start
Sure.
over.
Yep.
Okay.
So this, you won't find this shocking at all, but Abby and I were debating today World War II movies this morning, and before they had soccer, and we were talking about movies that were set in World War II but really weren't around about World War II.
Oh, I'm about to be controversial then.
That's the most of my list.
snap.
Yeah.
I only have one. I only have one.
Mhm.
Because y'all know this is my thing. This is my jam right here.
Spoilers. I'm not a big fan of war movies. Period.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess
So
you're going
I
to have
had-
to fess
I
up
had-
to that.
I had
You're
to
wrong.
think. I had to think a lot on this, and yeah. So my list might be controversial.
So I
All
have
right.
a few honorable mentions too. I know that doesn't shock anybody.
No.
I have an honorable mention as well. It would be my top 1 if we were allowed a series.
Ooh.
Am I
I know what
allowed
it
a
is.
series?
Because I think that would be number 1 too.
You could put that as an honorable mention. Sure.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So you guys asked me to come prepared with my top 5 World War II movies, which I appreciate. And so here we go. All right. So number 5 is The Bridge Over the River Kwai. Number 4 is it's Midway, which is of the Battle of Midway, and the original one, not the
I was gonna ask
latest
you.
one.
I was gonna
Yep.
ask you.
And then the next one would be Saving Private Ryan. And the only reason it's there is because it's just too violent for me. And I have to watch it. I had a friend that finally slowed everything down and made me realize that like things that were getting blown up were dummies, and I have to sort of watch it dispassionately. But anyway, that's a fabulous movie. And of course it covers a lot of what my story started with. So, and then the next one is The Longest Day, yet another
That's a
one
good
that
one.
takes
Yeah.
a lot of people never watch that, but it is D-Day. And it starts on, Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, and my story starts there as well. And it takes into account St. Mary Glees, which is where the paratrooper is on the steeple in the Church of St. Mary Glees. And I'm sorry, I really broke the rules here now that I'm thinking about it. But my number one right now, World War II movie, is Five Came Back. But it's not a movie; it's a series, and I don't know if you've seen it, but
Haven't,
I just
but I
love it
will.
because it's a documentary series, and it focuses on the 5 World War II film directors. And so they were all Hollywood star directors that were then recruited into the military that then produced. And so I guess then that reminds me, yet another one. Here's another honorable mention. Have you guys ever seen Best Years of Our Lives?
I have not.
If you have not, okay, I'm gonna make this my number one now instead of Five Came Back, because William Wyler was a director. He was a Hollywood director that went and became a film director during World War II, and they did a lot of propaganda films and other things. But he lost his hearing when he was recording in like a B-29 bomber, I think, and thought it was gone forever. And anyway, he then directed this movie, Best Years of Our Lives. And it is the best depiction I can ever fathom of what it was like for these World War II GIs to come back home. And it covers somebody in the Navy and 2 people in the Army, all living in the same hometown. So it's phenomenal. And then what would be number one if I was really allowed a series is Band of Brothers, of course.
Yes.
And just so you know, episode 3, I think it is, where I think it's 2 and 3 cover what my film covers. And here I'm going to encourage you to go back and watch episodes 1, 2, and 3, because we shoot on Utah Beach, which is St. Marie du Mont, and that is where Brecourt Manor is. Brecourt Manor is the farm that Dick Winters and his guys liberated. And Tom Hanks wanted to tell a specific story about the owner of Brecourt Manor and was not given permission to tell it, but we were given permission to tell it. So in our film, there is
You
a very
one-upped Tom Hanks.
I did. There's a very special story in there. And then there's also Carenton, which is a whole episode in itself. And a lot of our film is filmed in Carenton as well. So there's my list. What do you guys think? And what's on
Very good.
yours?
All right.
It's a good list.
It's a
Brooke,
good
you want to
list,
go
but I don't
next?
have a
It's a
lot,
good list.
yeah.
Yes, because this is my stuff. So I have a couple of honorable mentions, and they're honorable mentions because they really sparked my love for this era and the history and the struggle, the human struggle and the human sacrifice that we saw. So my 3 honorable mentions are Tora, Tora, Tora,
Good one.
The Sands of Iwo Jima, and The Fighting Seabees. So those are my 3. Those were like sick day movies. My dad's a huge John Wayne fan, and so to this day I could probably recite those verbatim. So
I've never seen The Fighting Seabees, and my grandfather was a Seabee that was in Normandy. So I'm going to have to watch that one.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So here's my top 5. Number 5 is Pearl Harbor, just because it's a beautiful film. 4 is Schindler's List.
Oh gosh, I can't even watch that. I've watched it once and that was enough for me.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's heart-wrenching. 3 is Saving Private Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of in the
2
middle of your list, like in the middle of mine.
yeah, because a lot of it the same reasons. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of soul-shaking. So number 2 is Dunkirk.
Oh, that is a good one.
That is a
Because
good
I
one.
love, I
want to see
love
it. I
just
haven't seen that
the
one.
sacrifice and the idea of, and I kept asking myself, would I have taken my boat? Like, would I put
Yeah.
myself out there? Would I have done that kind of thing? And then my number 1 is the original Midway.
Yep. Yep.
So,
It's so great. We just watched the original Midway just a few weeks ago. And compared it to the new Midway, and I don't know. I'm still a big fan of the original one.
I probably
Yeah,
need to
so
watch it because I haven't seen either.
Oh,
it
yeah.
launched a
you should.
whole huge project for me when I was in my undergrad. That movie did, and I've seen it probably hundreds of times. So when we were watching the new one, I was like, "This isn't right. This is so
Mhm.
wrong,"
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so
All
All right. Who's
um,
next?
I guess I'll go. Like I said, disclaimer. I'm not a huge war movie fan, specifically like real war. And that fantasy war I'm fine with, but real war, I don't know. There's something about it. Anyway, so when you hear my list,
You're
that's the
defending your
reason.
list an awful lot before you get started. So this must be bad.
Disclaimer. Okay. So my number 5 is Captain America: First Avenger. So
right.
I love that movie. It is, it's fantasy, but it's portrayed in real life, and that is my number 5. My number 4 is Pearl Harbor, because again, it's a really well made movie, and it's a good watch. My number 3 is Imitation Game.
That was on my list. Oh
with
man,
Benedict
I do love that
Cumberbatch.
one. Yeah, that's a great one.
That's a really good one. My number 2 is Schindler's List, as we just mentioned. And I actually had a question for you, Christian. The cover of your documentary has the girl in the red, white, and blue dress, and it's black and white. Was that inspired by Schindler's List?
You know what? Honestly, I didn't make it. My partner made it, so it is very possible. I do not know, but that dress is the feature because it was made out of American parachutes that landed in Normandy, a red parachute and a white parachute. So I think my partner wanted to show that off a little bit.
Yeah, it's a really nice cover. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
But I seen Schindler's List, and it was black and white, and they had the red dress on the girl, and I was like, I've seen this before, but so just wanted to ask you. And then my number 1 is The Boy in Striped Pajamas. And that I've watched it multiple times. It makes me cry every single time. So
I've never seen that one. I'll have to add that to my list.
It's on Netflix, and it's very, very sad.
Well, I don't know if I want to watch it now. All right, Bowling, what about you?
Yep.
All right. So mine kind of switches back and forth between like serious and not serious movies. But my number 5, I did start off with Pearl Harbor as well. Number 4 is probably one of the controversial ones in that it's not directly about the war, but it was A League of Their Own. I do like the movie.
That's a good movie. That's a good movie.
It's a good movie. It is wartime, so
yeah,
it is.
Number, where am I at? 4, 3,
3.
Is it Saving Private Ryan?
It is not, but I must have miscounted here. 1, 2. Oh wow, yeah, I did. So I guess Pearl Harbor was a honorable mention. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, my bad. My number 4, I had Patton.
That is a good
movie.
Oh,
Yeah, and he's a.
I am now friends
character.
with his granddaughter Helen Patton, who is actually in our movie. Yeah.
I read a book about was him, Marshall, and MacArthur, I think, called The Generals, and it is a great book. And the actor that plays Patton in there is actually from Wise, Virginia, which is my hometown, so it's kind of a hometown thing too.
That's cool.
Number 2 is making sure I'm counting right this time. No, number 3 is Schindler's List. Had to put it there.
Okay.
Number 2 is the one I probably watched the most. Is Inglourious Bastards. It's a not very serious, living up to that, but I love that movie. I love any Tarantino movie. So number 1, I had to put Saving Private Ryan. I've only seen it twice for the same reasons you all were talking about, but it is such a powerful movie that I have a hard time.
Yeah, for sure. All right. I'm sorry about this. I'm going to have to break things up, but you guys didn't have some of the really good ones on your list. So I'm going to have to straighten them out.
Nice.
So first of all, I don't know if you've seen this recently, but has anybody seen Jojo Rabbit? You've got to watch Jojo Rabbit. It is so strange, but so wonderful. It's hilariously funny and then heartbreakingly sad. So certainly add Jojo Rabbit to your list. It's a newer one. I can't even say the director's name, but it is super good. So add Jojo Rabbit to your list. And then there are 2 that no one has heard about. And I'm going to tell you about them because they're phenomenal. But have you guys heard of Operation Petticoat?
heard of it, but I haven't.
Yeah, I've heard of
seen
it.
So, Operation Petticoat is a Navy movie. It's a comedy, and it's with Cary Grant and just about any famous actor from the 50s. So, check out Operation Petticoat. And then, oh my goodness, you've got to watch Father Goose. So, Father Goose is another funny one with Cary Grant, and it's so, so, so good. And then I want to point you to the Girl Who Wore Freedom blogs. So if you go to thegirlwhoworefreedom.com, you'll see we have a blog section. And my husband, who is a phenomenal writer, a World War II history major, and a super funny guy, wrote 3 blogs. One is called 10 War Films That Describe My Life. And that is describe his life as married to a director of a film. So he wrote that during my filming. And then he wrote another one called 7 War Movies Not Worth Your Time. And let me tell you what he has put on that list.
I was going to say, hopefully we don't have any that overlap, but we probably do.
We'll see. Okay, so these are the 7 World War II movies he feels are not worth your time.
Uh-oh.
Fury.
Okay.
Inchon. The Thin Red Line. The New Midway.
Okay.
The New Red Dawn. Pearl Harbor.
Oh, wow.
Wind Talkers. Those are the 7 World War II movies
Right
not
about
worth
that.
your time.
What I'll say about Pearl Harbor is I don't think one is not realistic.
That's what his point is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Abby and I, Abby's my youngest daughter, who's a huge film nerd. We debated this morning that we love the movie, but could we really do? She and I put it in a World War II movie because it's just
cheesy.
so much. Yeah, it's cheesy.
It is.
But it's fun to watch. So
Yes. Well,
So-
that's true.
So
I recently watched, I guess this would be an honorable mention because it's a pretty good movie. It's Greyhound on Apple TV
Yeah.
with Tom Hanks. That's a good one. So, yeah.
y'all
Yeah.
make me just always want to
Very, very well done. But it's very, very well done. But I have to say though, that one wasn't as what I loved about it was the faith component of the main character and how that sort of drove his decisions. And it really all is about this captain of this, ship, and what his mission was. Really, the story itself can be summed up really quickly. And so it's powerful when you look at it in that light. But it's a pretty slow moving,
It is.
all in one world kind of movie. Yeah. Well, this has been super fun. Thanks, you guys, for having me on. I'm really sad that The Girl Who Wore Freedom didn't make anybody's list, but
I was expecting you to put it
Well-
as number 1. I thought that's what you were going to say when you
So,
said that you were cheating.
I'm a purist in my list, so I was doing movies. I wasn't including anything else, and I didn't realize, we were going to cheat.
Documentary.
So, yeah.
Hey. Documentaries are considered movies.
I know.
Thank you very much.
I don't know. I was thinking, I guess, purely on older
Excuses.
movies.
You're forgiven. You're forgiven.
To be fair, I'm the only one here that's watched it outside
I know.
Christian. So
That's true.
I was so sad when Stacy texted me. He's like, the link's expired. And I was like, what? That was our Friday night movie. So,
I can't. We're going to have to figure that out because the link should not be expired. It should still be working. So we need to figure that out.
to come up with a final list really quickly, the repeats
yeah.
that we had Pearl Harbor on multiple, unless Christian wants to veto it, and then I'll allow that.
My husband will veto it for sure.
We had Midway on multiple lists, so Midway would be on there. Schindler's
original.
List, the original Midway. We had Schindler's List. We had Save It Private Ryan on multiple lists. So that's 3. What else do we want? 2 more.
I'd have to vote for Dunkirk.
I will
Okay.
second that. I will second that.
Dunkirk and Captain America.
Dunkirk and
I'm not going to give you Captain
No.
America. I would either say A Bridge Too Far. I'd probably say A Bridge Too Far.
we can do that.
I'd agree.
Okay. A bridge too far.
Yeah.
All right.
Sweet.
So that's our top 5.
All
Okay.
right.
Christian, thank you so much for being on. This has
Yeah.
been a lot of
It's
fun.
been a lot of fun.
It's been great. And You don't know how much the Holy Post podcast has changed me as a Christian. It's helped me grow. I think I discovered N.T. Wright maybe from the Holy Post podcast, and he's one of my favorite theologians. So just thank you so much for all
you
your work.
are welcome. I've been growing right along with you, same thing. And I don't know if you know, but there's a YouVersion app, and they have a daily devotional every morning, and N.T. Wright is on there. Like every now and then he'll pop up and do the little video chat, and I'm like,
Oh, how cool.
oh my
really?
gosh, it's so cool. Yeah, he's such a great guy. But I love hearing him give a talk on the Bible, because it's like listening to C.S. Lewis. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. All right.
So, well, it's been so nice to be here with you. Thank you, guys. Hopefully I'll see you again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Peace be with
All right.
you, and goodbye. Thank you so much to Christian for being on our podcast. We were delighted to have her, and we hope she can join in the future. Make sure to check her out on Twitter at Christian's Voice. Also check out her movie, thegirlwhoworldfreedom.com. Also, check out the Holy Post. Listen to the folks that inspired us to do a podcast. They are amazing. If you enjoy our content, make sure to subscribe to our channels. Hit the little bell notification on YouTube. Share our videos and give us a like, maybe a comment. Thanks, everyone.